Welcome to the D-VELO-P Training Podcast, where we untangle the complexities of peak performance in cycling. My name is Fredrik Eriksson, and together with my partner in crime, Erik Åkesson, we are the dorky coaching duo who will be your hosts.
Hello and welcome to another episode of D-VELO-P Training Podcast. My name is Erik.
And my name is Fredrik. And today we are going to take a dive into a scientific study, as we do sometimes. For those of you who watch this on YouTube, you might see that I'm wearing a t-shirt with a firefighter logo on, because I am at the moment on call as a part-time firefighter. And Europe has been plagued with hot weather and a lot of wildfires and forest fires for the last weeks, if not months. And as a firefighter, I know that when you're out fighting those kind of fires out in the woods, it's multi days. Usually, it takes some time to get control of something like that, which is a little bit like a stage race. It's both physically and mentally demanding. It's multi-day. Of course, it's not as demanding as like a Tour de France stage, but it's a little bit like a stage race. And sleep is sometimes compromised, but you try to do it as much as possible to recover, to be as good as possible for the next day. And that is something we're going to talk about in today's study.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to talk about sleep and sleep in a Grand Tour. And
now I'm actually getting alarm. I'm going out for a fire.
yeah, thanks for today. Goodbye.
We'll keep in touch. Bye. All right, it's a few days later, and that was quite a coincidence that I actually got called out on a forest fire. And well, I didn't get much sleep that night. I think we were done with the fire at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I had to go back home and try to get some sleep. So that's the life of a part-time fireman.
Yeah, exactly. Part-time fireman. And it was a coincidence, as you said, because as I was going to say when you got the alarm, is that we're going to talk about sleep and sleep during a Grand Tour. And this is a study published in Sports Medicine in 2024 by Gregory Roach and colleagues. And the study is called "The Nighttime Sleep and Autonomic Activity of Male and Female Professional Road Cyclists Competing in the Tour de France and Tour de France Femmes."
Grand tours are always very challenging. Of course, very physically challenging, but also very mentally challenging and challenging in many other ways. And I think they write something in the article that the physiological demand of the Grand Tour are well above those that can be undertaken by most endurance-trained athletes. That's for sure, but it's also something that it's not for every professional athlete, professional cyclist, because it's a very unique kind of physiology that you need for these kind of events. At least if you're going to go for the GC.
Yeah, we know that it's only about 10 or 15 guys and girls who's going for the GC, and the rest of them are targeting stages or having another job in the tour. But the data from this tour was actually from the 2022 Vuelta a España. No, what did I say? Not Vuelta a España. Tour de France and the Tour de France Femmes. And they collected the data with Whoop devices, both from the guys and from the girls. And the guys were from one specific team, and the girls were from two different teams.
And we suspect that the men's team is the Alpes in the König team, because
we did some digging, and they said that 6 out of the 8 guys in the team completed the race. And with some digging, we found out that Alpecin König, as they were called back then, did only that. But for the girls, we don't really know which kind of girls they were. But well, let's dive into the study. Well, as we said, there was the participants were 17 road cyclists. 8 of them were males, and no, 9, 8 were males, and the rest females. And it was from the 2022 edition of Tour de France and Tour de France Femme. And the data were collected with whoop straps, as I said. And yeah.
Yeah, and they try to look at the different types of stages, the characteristics. I think we talked on a previous episode of the podcast that the categorization of flat, semi-mountainous, and high mountainous stages. They also included time trials in this, at least for the men, or was it both for men and female? I don't remember if was it both.
Yeah, it was both.
And they try to see if that type of stage had an impact on the sleep. One thing that they mentioned early in the method here is that they didn't collect any data on the intake of any sleep affecting substances like alcohol or caffeine or sleep medications, which we know is kind of prevalent in the professional peloton. Like Stilnox or something like that is quite often prescribed for sleep, because it is quite often that people have sleep disturbances, especially at stage races. And also they didn't look if they took the non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs or things like that, like pain killers, that could also affect sleep in a positive way, at least.
They collected some data before and after the tour as well, just so they have some base points to go with. And we know for the guys it's 21 stages, and for the girls it's 8. But there was some mixed things in this article, that whether they included the last day or not. We didn't really figure that out, because in the data they have it from the Champs-Élysées stage, but they say that they didn't collect that data or include that data. So
no, for neither, not for the men or the women,
exactly.
And the reasoning being that after the last stage there's a lot of traveling, and maybe, like we concluded, there might be a bit of partying or other factors that affect sleep.
Yeah,
but it was a little bit unclear.
We'll get into that when we get to the results. But
Yeah.
the 2022 Tour and the Tour de France Femme, what do you remember from it, Fredrik?
Well, I've highlighted for the men. I've highlighted stage 12 because that was one wicked stage. It's 165 kilometers and 4,813 meters of climbing that stage, which is pretty brutal. And I remember it finished on the Alpe d'Huez, and that was the stage that Tom Pidcock won.
Yeah.
Which certainly an epic stage. Every tour has at least a stage like that, but this one really stuck out for this tour.
Yeah, I agree. Both the famous descending and the Pidcock's win up the Alpe. But I also remember the first few stages in Denmark, and then when they got to Calais, when Wout van Aert was second, and then second in Denmark, and then eventually won when they got to when they got to France. That was pretty great. But back to the study.
Yeah, and one thing to mention with the female Tour de France Femme is that it wasn't actually a time trial in that one.
Oh, right.
No, and it's significantly shorter. It's eight stages, and it's a really like a progression, because it starts with a flat and short stage on the Champs-Élysées, and then it goes longer but flatter, and then it goes into hills, and then it ends with two tough mountain stages. So it's more gradually harder and harder and harder, so to speak. At least when you look at the course, you never know with the road race, because the tactics of course dictate how hard the stage is going to be. But if you look at just the course profile, it gets harder and harder and harder all the way to the finish.
Yeah, and the girls they end at the Super Planche D-VELO-P, while the men is at the Champs-Élysées stage in France. So it's quite different last stage as well.
Yeah.
But
and they looked at the physiological workload using both the classic TRIMP model, which is there's a few versions of the TRIMP, but they used the one that I think was developed. I mean, Bannister did the first TRIMP, but this was an evolution of that by Padilla in the early 2000s, late 90s. And then they also looked and used the Whoop's daily strain, looked at that data as well when it comes to the workload.
Yeah, and the interesting thing here, the Whoop measures a lot of variables, and they looked at both the sleep onset time, time in bed, something they call sleep efficiency, light sleep. They track a lot, and in here they say that they use the Whoop 4.0. But they say that only the Whoop 3.0 is validated, and looked between the Whoop and an electrocardiogram, and are excellent between the 3.0. But we don't really know the 4.0. We hope it's better, but we don't really know.
Hopefully it has developed to be even better, but like you said, there's no scientific study to validate it compared to the gold standard, so to speak. One thing that I forgot to mention when it comes to the daily strain, the kind of the load on the body, is I don't know exactly how that works, but I think a lot of the load for the riders during of course, all the Grand Tours are tough, but Tour de France is the pinnacle of road cycling, and the pressure is just immense when it comes to the media, to sponsors, and of course on top of that you have the normal load with transit and other types of travel and all kinds of things that goes on in conjunction with the Grand Tour. So it is certainly not just physical. It's really a lot of mental load as well. And I think hopefully this daily strain might take some of that into account. Otherwise, it might be showing up in the sleep data. We'll see.
We'll see, exactly. And we can of course guess that the daily strain of a high-profile GC rider is higher than maybe some of the participants wearing the Whoop bands in this study.
Yeah.
But if we go down, they say that they excluded the last stage 21, because they may be affected by additional factors associated with ending the race, i.e. travel commitments. I would guess some alcohol and partying as well, but that's what I guess.
I don't think that's a wild guess.
Yeah, and of course they didn't include the time trials, the stage 1 and stage 20 for the men, because the cyclists tend not to wear the Whoop during these stages. I would guess for aerodynamic things, but yeah.
Maybe. I was a little bit surprised. I mean, the aerodynamic could definitely be the reason, but other than that, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't use it for the time trials when they used it for all the other stages.
Yeah, well, the Whoop isn't a Richard Mille watch worth 3.5 million euros.
Which is so aerodynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also one thing that was, I think, a little bit of a pity, they didn't include the rest day rides. I mean, almost all the riders take a spin on the rest days on the grand, well, at the men's Grand Tours, because they have rest days. There's no 3 weeks races yet for women, but everybody goes on a spin on the rest day, or at least almost everybody. That would have been interesting to see. I mean, the length and how tough that spin was. If it was a 1 hour spin, or it was a 4 hour spin, or if somebody didn't go out on a spin on the rest day, that would have been awesome to see as well. But they excluded that data for a reason, which I kind of got that they didn't do it because the riders was doing those spins at different times of the day, and there were different length and everything. But it would have been interesting to see if that affected sleep in any way.
Yeah, and if we go down to the results, I believe for the simplicity of it, we take the males first and then go to the femmes. And we said that there was 8 male cyclists, 6 completed all 21 stages of the race, and 2 withdrew from the race. But they included the data from the 2 that withdrew in the analysis. So they have that data. Yeah.
Yeah, well, digging into that, not surprisingly, stage 12 was one of the 2 hardest, but also a little bit like we talked about in the episode when we were talking about the profiles of the races. It was stage 6 that was the second hardest for these riders, which it wasn't a mountain stage, it was more of a hilly stage, which kind of highlights that stage profile and how tough a race isn't a perfect correlation. Yeah, well, the thing that kind of struck me when I was looking at this data is that the riders went to bed and fell asleep pretty much the same time during the race that they did when they were at home, which also was quite surprisingly early in both, because the men fell asleep at 10:18 p.m. and got up at 6:36 a.m. And that was very similar to how they were sleeping at home, which I kind of wonder, are you in bed by 10:18 p.m. during a grand tour when there's so much travel transit going on? There's dinners and massages, and for some there are media obligations at whatnot, and the start is usually quite late in the day. Why get up at 6:30? I found that a little bit weird.
Yeah, yeah, me too. That I like it because they are like me in that case. But that struck me too because, as you say, they finish the race between 5 and 6 most days, and then they're gonna have podium ceremony and go down the mountain if there's a mountaintop finish, and media and doping controls and transfers and dinner and massages and thank you speeches
Team
for
meetings and
yeah. So doing that all in 4 hours on average is kudos to them.
well organized.
Yeah, but and you said that they didn't change that during the tour as it was before. It was the same time, and actually the heart rate, resting heart rate, and heart rate variability wasn't that much different either before, during, and after the race for the men.
No, and one thing that struck me when it comes to the heart rate variability and resting heart rate, which they had also an analysis when they categorized like what was the heart rate variability and the resting heart rate after all the mountain stages, all the hilly, all the flat, all the time trials, and the rest days as well. The interesting thing is that both when it comes to time trials, the day after time trials was the lowest resting heart rate and highest heart rate variability, even higher the heart rate variability than after rest, and lower resting heart rates, than rest as well, which is interesting, of course. But I actually have a similar experience because back in, I think it was 2007, I actually had a cooperation with First Beat Technologies, which were a pioneer when it comes to heart rate variability and these kind of monitoring. And I had a system that I brought and used on races. And I remember actually on a few stage races seeing that the day after time trial, I actually kind of recovered during a stage race, which is pretty similar to the data we're seeing here 20 years later.
So you're saying that doing an all-out 30 to 40 minute effort is better for your health than resting?
I'm not saying that, but the data kind of implies it, which is, of course, a really interesting observation. I mean, everybody knows that a time trial is certainly not restful. You can do that day in and day out. But it's still interesting that during a stage race, compared to doing a road stage, which actually in many ways at least could be a lot easier, but it takes maybe 5 hours or something like that, is more taxing when it comes to how it affects the autonomic nervous system.
But yeah, of course. But here we don't really know how much effort the participants went into the time trial either. They maybe just wanted to make the time cut. So it was like a rest day ride or something like that. We don't know that, but it's an interesting observation you made.
Yeah. And I know for a fact that at least the few stage races with the time trial that I did with the First Beat device back then, I did those time trials all out. So on that one, I'm pretty sure it was all out. But like you said, for these riders, they may just have viewed it as getting through the stage as easy as possible.
And we said that time in bed wasn't any difference before, during, and after the race. But if you look at light sleep, for example, they had more light sleep during the race than before and after, as well as less REM sleep. So that may be indicating that they sleep a little worse on the road than back home, with different hotels and environments and mattresses and pillows and stuff like that. But they sleep good, but more light sleep.
Yeah, and that's certainly not surprising at all. I would just say that I was actually surprised that they slept as well as they did, because and I think taking a story from this year's Tour de France, where when they had a really hot weather, there were people, riders, that when they came to the hotel, it was too hot in the room. There was no air conditioning in the room. It was too hot, so they're actually sleeping out on the balcony. Which of course might not be ideal for sleep. I mean, I like sleeping outside. I love sleeping in a tent, but I don't know if I would prefer that kind of sleeping arrangement when riding a grand tour.
No, when it was that warm here in Sweden as well, in the middle of the summer, I actually slept in my ice vest.
That's next level nerdy.
Yeah, but I couldn't sleep. It was so hot. And I can imagine it was like maybe 8-10 degrees hotter in France.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be actually a good technique. I never thought about sleeping in an ice vest, but that might be a good technique when you're experiencing extreme temperatures in the room you're sleeping in.
Yeah. And the light sleep we see got more and more light sleep week 1 and week 2. Then actually they slept better the third week. Probably they were more exhausted than from all the racing, so they actually slept a bit better the third week.
Yeah, and we don't know. We were just talking about weather. We don't know how the weather was during this Tour de France. If it was like super hot the first 2 weeks and cooler the last week or something like those kind of factors could be. And I don't think I saw any data in this study that reported the weather, which should affect sleep in some ways.
Yeah. And if we look at resting heart rate and heart rate variability, we see that after the hardest stages, the resting heart rate, they follow actually what kind of stage it is. If it is a mountain stage, the resting heart rate is a bit higher than on flat and hilly stages. And of course, the the spread between the highest and the lowest resting heart rate after the final stage was insane, between high 20s and up to 90 beats per minute after all the partying, I would assume.
Yeah,
As well
so
as
some
the
rider.
heart rate variability, it was between almost 20 and 200 after the last stage, when normally
like
they
we
were
said.
between 100 and 120.
Yeah, like we said, as the some riders after they finished the Champs-Élysées for the men's and after the last stage in the mountains for the women, they probably went straight home or somewhere else because they were exhausted and wanted to really start recovering, and others went straight out partying, celebrating either a successful stage race or partying that they made it to the finish.
Yeah.
And when we look at the women's race, it was 8 riders that completed all 8 stages of the race, and 1 rider that withdrew from the race. But also, like there was for the men's, they included of the stages that the rider that withdrew up to that point. And just like they did for the men's, they did some testing to get a baseline before, and then some testing after to see how they recovered afterwards.
Yeah, and this one was actually a bit more strange, I would say, because the female cyclist fell asleep on average 18 minutes over 9 in the evening and woke up at 5:58 in the morning. It's actually around almost 9 hours, but it is, I would say, a bit strange to go to bed that early and wake up that early when the only job you have is to ride a bike.
Yeah, so
That was the
once again,
baseline before.
yeah, once again, a little bit weird timing of these of the onset and waking up.
The pre-race baseline for the women, the resting heart rate was on average 46 plus minus 5, and the heart rate variability during sleep was 120 plus minus 26. So that was before they started.
Yeah.
And if we go to the race, we said that they fell asleep at 18 minutes past 9 before, and during the race, it was almost 20 minutes later. But they woke up at the same time, around 6, so a bit less sleep, 8.4 hours compared to 8.7. But the sleep efficiency, as they call it, was almost 90%, which is pretty good, I would assume.
Yeah, so the ladies slept pretty well during the race as well, which I think it is a little bit surprising that the racing didn't have a bigger impact on sleep. I was I was anticipating bigger differences, both in when the timing of sleep, and also when it comes to how the efficiency or the time in REM sleep and so on would have been bigger. But obviously, these riders slept like babies during the race as well, which might be a reason for them being riders who are picked for Grand Tours as well.
Or they had some pills to make them sleep better.
Could be, because like we said, we know that it's quite common in the professional peloton with sleep aids. So that might be a factor. We don't know, since it didn't. They didn't ask with a questionnaire about that.
If we look at the trim score for the stages, we can see that the mountain stages was hardest, as we would have guessed, and with quite a margin as well. And with stage 7 was the all hardest of them all.
And worth
Looking back,
noting with that is that since it only was 2 mountain stages, the last 2, and it didn't include the last one, it was only 1 mountain stage included in this analysis.
we would assume, but the in the results they included the final one as well. So I don't know. But if we dig into the Tour de France Femme from 2022 as well, we know that Annemiek van Vleuten won that edition, and she made a decisive move on stage 7 and gave minute over Demi Vollering. So I would guess that the final stage was a bit more passive for many riders, and we don't know which one were included in this study. But for many riders, they maybe rode more passively just to sustain that position in the overall.
Yeah, with that, the mountain stage being the last one, I think a lot of riders just that weren't in it for a stage win, or didn't have a specific task, which I think is a majority of the riders. They probably just wanted to get the finish line in as nice pace as possible to save some energy for the after party, probably.
Yeah, I would assume so. We see that the resting heart rate on average goes up a bit during the race, not a lot, not significant differences, but a bit, as well as the HRV follows the how hard the races is. So the day 6 and 7 was worse than the other stages when it comes to the HRV, because they were the hardest. Other than that, I believe there was not much to conclude from from the FEMS from this one. Or do you have anything more, Fredrik?
Nothing specifically for the Tour de France Femme, but the highlight, or the major finding that they list here, the major finding of the study is that the amount of sleep obtained by male and female cyclists did not change over the course of their respective races, nor did autonomic activity during sleep. Sleep quality was poorer after mountain stages compared to flat stages in female cyclists. Heart rate variability was lower after mountain stages compared to flat stages in male cyclists, and there was no cumulative effect of racing on sleep or autonomic activity during sleep in male cyclists. So that's kind of the conclusion. And I was, like I said, a little bit surprised that it wasn't bigger differences. And when it comes to the autonomic effects, those I don't know, since I'm not a doctor, but if you take sleep aids, I don't know if they affect those things. So I mean, even if they had taken sleep aids and therefore got enough sleep, the autonomic activity shouldn't be affected by that and should be more affected by a tough race, which it really wasn't. So that was the big surprise, so to speak, for my part at least.
Yeah, I agree. And as we said, they concluded that sleep quality was poorer after the mountain stage compared to fast stages in female cyclists. Uh, that can also be that the last stages was mountain stages and they didn't have last stages after that ones as the males did. So we don't know if it's just because they emptied the tank and they didn't have to ride more afterwards, or if it was just uh, the mountain stage that affected the sleep quality more. We don't know.
And when it comes to how exercise affects sleep quality, we know that an elevated core temperature affects sleep quality. We know that, I mean, if you have some muscle soreness, which is quite common if you're training or in this case racing hard, affects sleep quality. And then, of course, sympathetic activity or the balance between the parasympathetic and sympathetic activity affects sleep. And I mean, when it comes to, I mean, all of these have the potential to disrupt sleep in any way. But the probable, the most probable one is that is core temperature. But I mean, I don't know if that is going to be elevated, not because of the race, but maybe because of the recovery after a race. So when it comes to muscle soreness, that's we can suspect, but we don't know that they might take like a painkiller or something like that before going to bed. I don't know. They didn't ask, since they didn't have a questionnaire. There are other techniques. Of course, we think that everybody got massage, but did they do like cold water immersion or technique like or some kind of pressure socks or anything like that could help? We don't know. So the most likely in this case is probably a sympathetic activity that could disrupt sleep, but obviously that didn't really happen in a major way, at least.
They also discuss if different roles in the peloton is making any differences in this, because they cite another study that looked at that the heart rate variability was substantially lower for domestique after the first 15 stages of the Vuelta a España compared to the ones of the team leader. And since they didn't say, or we would assume that it is the Alpecin-Deceuninck team for the men's, and the best GC rider was like 60th place in 2022. So mostly they were probably domestiques for Jasper Philipsen and Mathieu Van der Poel, who did more work. So it would be nice to see if there was maybe the GC winner or top 10 riders as well, to see the differences from domestiques to GC riders to sprinters, where the differences are in sleep and HRV and resting heart rate and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it would be really interesting to see if the roles we talked about, different roles in road cycling in a previous episode, and that would be really interesting to see. Like you said, a GC rider or somebody going for stages, and if that somebody going for stages, is that a sprinter or a time trialer or a climber or something like that, and how that kind of affects. And of course, when it comes to helpers or domestiques, I mean, you never know exactly how hard you're going to be working on based on what type of stage it is, because it depends on how the whole race is developing and everything. So I think we said it back then that it's very difficult to with road cycling to say something like this type of rider, it's always like this for this type of rider, because you never know. And there's very few exactly this type of rider. A lot of riders are a little bit hybrids between different specialities as well.
One thing that they did mention in the discussion that we also noted was that they didn't include the journal from the cyclist with stuff that could influence the sleep, like nutritional intake, use of alcohol, caffeine supplements, medications. And they also say that there is a journal function in the Whoop device or the Whoop app, I would guess, where you can have this input. So in a next study, it would be nice to have that as well, to get some more info that would influence the results in these types of studies.
And one thing they mentioned that when it comes to additional things is napping, and they know that napping, of course, adds to the total sleep of the 24 hours. But it's napping during the Tour de France or the Tour de France Femmes. It's in all practicality, that's probably only going to be your only option is napping in the team bus or in the team car during transit, either to the stage or after the stage. So I don't know how much napping there is going on, and it's probably a huge variability. Somebody falls asleep as soon as they get on the team bus, and somebody never naps during a race like this. But that would, once again, would be really interesting to see if there are any trends based on that as well.
Yeah, if it's not like some of the commentators used to say that someone is caught napping when they don't get in the breakaway or stuff like that. That's a
Yeah,
bad
I don't
nap.
think it's that type of napping there.
No, that's a bad nap. No, but all in all, it is an interesting study that dives into sleep and some things that affect sleep during a Grand Tour, and it's always nice to see data from professional cyclists, even if some of them just are stating the obvious, but it's nice to have them on print as well.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest surprises for me, apart from there not being that much differences when it comes to sleep quality and how they were sleeping from their day-to-day lives, is that how early they went to bed and got up. Because my impression is that usually it's a little bit shifted more to later for a lot of professional cyclists due to late starting times and whatnot. So that was the biggest surprise for me, at least. Well, from this Tour de France, from this year's Tour de France 2026, is that we know that there were some out of competition doping controls late at night, which was a big debate. I think Pogacar was one of the tested riders at, was it 2 a.m.? And he said that he had just gone to bed at 1 a.m. and then got woken up at 2 a.m. For the doping test.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big part of it as well, at least this year. And yeah, I think that's it. And we're going to wrap this episode up with that. And yeah, it was a nice study to read.
Absolutely. And to summarize, get some good quality sleep. It's important.
Yeah, the clock is 10 past 9 now, so we'll dive right into it.
Absolutely. Let's go and get some sleep.
Yeah,
Thank you for
you'll hear from
listening.
us next week again. Bye.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of the D-VELO-P Cycling Training Podcast. For more training tips and deeper dives into performance, you can follow us on Substack and check out our blog on our webpage as well. You can of course follow us on our social medias, Instagram and LinkedIn, and of course Facebook. And if you've got any questions or ideas for future topics of the pod, leave a comment below this episode. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening, keep pushing forward, and we'll see you next time.